Thank you for joining us for this documentary, a record for posterity of the process undertaken for establishing Simsbury's new Veterans Memorial. I'm Ray Jennings, member of American Legion Post 84, and representing both Post 84 and Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1926 for this documentary. What follows is the reasoning behind the need for a new memorial, the selection of a suitable site, its design, its approval by the town's boards and commissions, its construction and dedication. In the first segment, you will see a clip from Connecticut Public Television's Connecticut First news program for Memorial Day 2016, explaining the reason for constructing a new memorial. It introduces 3 of the 4 committee members from the American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars. In addition to myself, they are John Fox and Bruce Elliott. Also in this segment is Terry Hahn, the project's landscape architect. After this segment, Len Lanza, the 4th committee member who acted as the master of ceremonies at the dedication, will explain the process that progressed from the idea's initiation to the dedication.
Right now, Simsbury has 3 memorials in different locations around town to commemorate the 104 veterans who died in service. There's one at Eno Hall.
And it has the 28 names who were killed since World War I.
Across the street in the town cemetery, a monument honors those who died during the Revolutionary War. And a few miles down the road, there's the Civil War Memorial. But by this time next year, veterans Bruce Elliott, Ray Jennings, and John Fox will see their dream become reality when the town completes one large monument in the center of Simsbury.
It'll be the only place where they can sit and reflect because the scattered nature of the other ones doesn't afford an opportunity.
The monument will be located next to the library on Hot Meadow Street at the corner of Eaglewood Lane.
Our thought is that having this thing in an area that's visible.
Architect Terry Hahn has been working with the veterans for the past 2 years, taking their vision from a series of sketches to a concrete concept.
And I'm just trying to implement what they envision and how proud they are of their service. There are 3 pillars representing the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights.
A 4th pillar stands for the American flag, the Liberty Bell, and the Statue of Liberty. The veterans see this memorial as a destination that could ultimately turn into a small park.
So this memorial, as I see it, is first recognizing those people that were in combat in the situation that I was in. But it's also for the mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters of those who currently are serving or have served who have lost their lives. When I hear of combat, people killed in combat, it hurts. It still brings back memories that I don't want to have.
Fox relived those memories 10 years ago when Simsbury native Sergeant Felix Del Greco was killed in Iraq.
He was my son's best friend, so obviously there was impact on the family, the whole family.
We think at this point Simsbury can do a lot better.
They represent the 900 veterans who currently reside in Simsbury, and they feel it's their duty to make sure there's a formal location to honor those who've given up their lives in the name of freedom.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the next 7 minutes, my objective is to provide a brief summary of what got us from where we were 5 years ago to where we are today. This journey has lasted 1,888 days. To put it another way, we can say 5 years, 2 months, and 2 days. That's a long time. That's 161 meetings since we first began the effort. But who's counting? When the journey began, Simsbury had 7 existing memorials to honor veterans. Some of those are inaccessible, and others honored only specific individuals or an isolated period of conflict. During a July 2011 annual visit to a beautiful upstate New York public park, I was very impressed by the installation of a recently dedicated memorial. It honored veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. It was adjacent to memorials to World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam for those veterans. At the September 2011 meeting of the local post of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, I proposed the formation of a committee to consider the development of a new, much more comprehensive memorial for Simsbury. There was a small group that agreed upon the inadequacy of what existed. Basically, I had the feeling that my sales pitch was accepted as a means of humoring the commander. I repeated the proposal at the October VFW meeting, and later in the same week, I took it to the American Legion meeting. The reception was, basically, very much the same, with one exception. I had a vocal American Legion supporter who enthusiastically volunteered to serve with me in an effort to get the proposal off the ground. That was Bruce Elliott, whose efforts over the last 5 years have been beyond anything I could have envisioned at the outset. Bruce and I were off and running. However, our biggest asset was very, very naive enthusiasm. We had no design, no location, no budget, but we had hope and determination. We began our search for direction. We were willing to talk with local individuals, groups, boards, and commissions, anyone who could offer guidance. It was in May of 2012 when Bruce and I were interviewing for the second time Ms. Terry Ann Hahn of Landscape Architectural Design Associates of Simsbury. We were thrilled when Terry agreed to work with us for free. Ladies and gentlemen, simply put, this magnificent tribute to veterans would not be here today if not for Terry's efforts. Patience and tolerance for 4 stubborn old veterans who are not always in agreement with each other. Ray Jennings and John Fox joined us a few months later, and each of them has been a tremendous addition to our team. I shall appreciate it if the 4 of you will stand and be recognized. In the year 1960, I was hired by the city of Bristol, Connecticut as an English teacher for grades 7 and 8 students. My job also included coaching the baseball team and directing graduation exercises, including the annual theatrical performance of the graduating class. The class and I selected a play entitled The Sands of Time. It was a touching story about love and loss, and the students did a great job. The closing line of the play was, "The sands of time flow slowly and steadily, but they flow inevitably." The sands of time flow slowly and steadily, but they flow inevitably. For the children among us who might not know the meaning of the word inevitable, it means that something is certain to happen. It can't be avoided. No matter what we do, time will pass. Slowly and steadily. That has been the story of this memorial project over the last 5 years. We were rejected by groups overseeing the first 2 locations we selected. Collectively, those efforts took almost 2 full years of work. The first time we went out to bid, the bids averaged hundreds of thousands of dollars, more than our available resources. It obviously was time to reevaluate and redesign. We had time, so we had hope. We never once considered quitting. What we were attempting to do was too important. It was around that time that I heard that some members of the community were thinking of asking us to return the money they paid to purchase bricks. We were, after all, in the midst of the worst recession since the Great Depression of the 30s. Today, with these inscribed columns, we honor all those residents in Simsbury who died far away, long before their time in service to their country. Their sands ran out far too soon. With the 570 laser-inscribed bricks on this plaza, we honor all the men and women who served and sacrificed, who left their families behind for long periods of time, who suffered the physical and mental wounds of combat. Let us not forget the wives, husbands, mothers, fathers,
sisters, brothers, and children who also suffered from the absence of their loved ones who answered their country's call. Unfortunately, time has prevented many of those honored by inscribed pavers from being present today for this dedication ceremony. During the past 5 years, we have lost many members of Simsbury's American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars posts. Ladies and gentlemen, the sands of time truly do flow slowly and steadily, but they do flow inevitably. I mentioned earlier that the past 5 years were a long time. However, we must keep time in perspective. 5 years, for example, is not much compared to the 61 years that have passed since I joined the Navy. Of course, there are many in this crowd who will stipulate to the fact that the older we get, the faster time seems to go. Everything in life has its place and time. This is the time and place for the Simsbury Veterans Memorial. Members of Simsbury's Veterans of Foreign Wars and American Legion are proud to leave behind us this remarkable remembrance on Simsbury's sands of time. We thank you for your support and financial assistance and for allowing us to create this day in Simsbury's history.
John Fox and I have arrived in Barre, Vermont at the plant of the Rock of Ages, who's doing all of our granite work. And we're pleased to be here on an absolutely beautiful autumn day. This is the quarry from which our high-quality Barre, Vermont light gray granite was removed and used for our memorial. From the quarry, the pieces are transported to the initial processing building saw plant. This saw can handle a 30-ton piece of granite. Our pieces were sawed to their rough dimensions on this horizontal diamond tip bandsaw.
Ray, these are the other 3 spires. They just came out of the saw plant, which we're going to go to next. So they're rough size.
Tom, what does each one of these columns weigh right now?
5,200 pounds each.
And when they get done cutting it to size, about how much would they weigh?
You're not going to lose much. You might lose 100 pounds or so. You're not going to lose a lot from this point.
Okay, Tom, we've stopped at another location to look at some blocks, and tell us what they are.
These are the supports for your benches. Your bench tops will sit on these, and the bench tops are the components that have the military emblems sandblasted into them.
Okay.
So this will secure the bench top to the foundation. Ray, this is the machine that we will be putting your spires on in order to create the apex at the top of them. You can see how the blade tilts at a 45. It's exactly what's going to happen to your component.
Here are the specifications for the project. The plaza was constructed with compacted imported fill placed in 12-inch lifts, which raised the grade 2 to 8 feet so it was level with the adjacent town sidewalk. The fill was compacted to 95%, as is required for pavement. A 5-inch concrete mud slab was installed with wire mesh reinforcing on top of 6 inches of compacted process aggregate. This mud slab is set approximately 3 inches below the final grade to accommodate the surface treatment. The final exposed surface treatment consists of 3 materials: finished concrete, pavers, and granite. Pavers are Pine Hall wire-cut clay brick pavers from the Pathway series in full range colors with a traditional edge. The granite used consists of 2 colors, light gray and jet black. Different finish treatments were used to darken or color the granite, giving the sense of different tones and textures. The granite on the ground is generally 2 feet wide. Major design elements of the plaza are as follows. A black granite project sign on the ground plane aligns with the solid black vertical entry stone with a bronze plaque. There is a carved black granite timeline which ties into the names listed on the granite columns. There are 4 2-foot square light gray columns with black granite insets that are in an arc to create the semicircle of the plaza. They are placed on 4-foot by 4-foot by 4-foot footings with 4 metal dowels connecting the footing to the base and the base to the column. There are 6 light gray granite benches. Each has 2 carved military service emblems on their top. A 30-foot fiberglass flagpole was donated by the Simsbury Volunteer Fire Department, set in a line with the columns to secure the circular form of the design. Lastly, there are 12 LED lights set below grade to illuminate the columns and flagpole at night.
Okay, this is our second visit to Rock of Ages, and our host today is Rob Belanger. And we're in a small room where Sophia is etching the visages of the people from each of the conflicts that are represented by the 98 folks who have lost their lives while on active duty. And this etching is taking place on black granite, and it will be located on one of the columns when we finally get it back to Simsbury. So, Rob, maybe you can just give us a little indication of what's going on here, and then we'll talk to Sophia, who's doing all the real work.
Right.
And it's beautiful.
So what's occurring here is you see on the wall the shots. There's been a drawing and some computer-generated layout that's been done. And Sophia is able to take that and then by hand and through her artistry will etch that into the stone. So it's in fact being engraved, and the polish that you see is being taken away, and what you're left with is the images that that she's created. So as you can see, it's a very artistic form that's done on the stone, and we're very lucky to have Sophia that can make these beautiful images.
When we were here last time, we saw the large planks, for lack of a better word, of what appears to be gray granite, but turns out when it's polished to be black granite. And this is a portion of one of those, is it not?
That's correct. Once the mask, which you'll see here, is removed and the entire piece is washed, you're going to see different types of surface treatment, which will give different colors to the stone. The polished is what it appears to be reflective, and then what we call dusted or memo will appear a little bit grayer. So it's just a different surface treatment that's been given to the stone.
Well, let's talk to Sophia a little bit. Sophia, we learned earlier, is from the Ukraine, but she has an incredible skill at putting these etchings onto a piece of granite. Where did you learn this trade?
Well, I'm an artist by my school. I went for 10 years to art school, and I used to be a painter, oil painter, iconography for churches, silk, and other media. But when I came to the United States, I had to learn something different to live. So that was my new medium to work.
How long have you been here?
Since 1991.
Wow, that's a long time. Well, you certainly have a tremendous talent, and this, I'm sure, is going to be very pleasing to the folks who look at it, but it's especially pleasing to the committee that's put this whole project together. This is just incredible visages on stone. The second stop on today's tour, we're at the columns where work is being done on the ropes and other engraving.
Sandblast mask, which is a rubber, and anywhere that we remove that rubber or mask, we're going to be sandblasting and engraving, and that will basically take away the stone and give it depth. But also what we're going to do with the rope work is we're going to relieve the area around it. After that's complete, then we go to a hand sculptor who's going to hand sculpt the rope. So there's quite a bit of detail and quite a bit of work that needs to go into each rope, and as you can see, there's numerous steps in the process as we go through.
Has the cutout for the inserts of the names of the 98 people, has that been cut out already, or is that part of the sandblasting?
That'll be part of the sandblast. You don't see it on this unit here, but if you look to your right, to the unit over here, we do have some of those cutouts, and they are prominent, but they're covered with rubber right now, so we don't hurt that surface any further. But you'll be able to take a look at where the raised rope section is, and then where the sunken plaque section is. So all of those areas that are raised, where the rope is, that will all be hand sculpted, and then these sunken sections are where the plaques are going, and then all of that will get another surface treatment before we ship it out.
We're here in one of the shops, and we're looking at the 3 benches, which each contain 2 of the logos of each of the 6 services that we're featuring in this memorial. The 6th one, which people may not recognize, is the Merchant Marines.
The 3 benches are made of very gray granite, and the surface treatment here will be very similar to what you'll have on your columns. If you looked at some of the berry gray in maybe our shop or the base that's to the left of us, that's polished over there. These have a memo or a dusted finish, which make it much softer and lend itself well to the sandblast.
Terry, what was the inspiration for the design?
Well, it came from two places. First, long time ago, I remember reading Alexis de Tocqueville, who talks about the Americans' fascination with building memorials, and it was either big, like Washington, D.C., or small, like a single element, similar to what I designed in Granby. But after seeing the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and Maya Lin's design in Washington, D.C., I realized it could be something else. It could be a place. It could be something that could be much more interesting, nuanced, and also integrate into the main street on Hop Meadow Street, which was a very important element that the committee wanted to make sure would occur, which is that it was right smack dab there on Main Street and would become a place that people always thought had been there. And I think we were able to actually accomplish that.
Terry, what was the biggest mistakes in the project?
I'd like to call them oops instead of mistakes. There were two. The first one was bid day 2015, when we discovered that the bids had come in 3 times more than the money that we had. Pretty much left us all with our hearts on the table and hoping that we could somehow salvage the overall design elements that we wanted to have. And that took a little bit of effort, and quite honestly really required a lot of thinking for all of us and getting our hopes back up so that we could make that happen. I think we were able to accomplish that mostly through working with Rock of Ages to understand how the cost was related to what we were carving on the columns. So in other words, anything that you carved into the column was basically free, but anything that was projecting forward was very expensive. So we really had to look at how that worked. The second one, of course, was when we were laying out the plaza. We discovered fill was all in place, everything was going great, laid it all out and discovered that there was a 6.5-foot differential where the property line actually was versus where we thought it was. And at that point we had to push the whole plaza back, come up with some more money, extend the pavers, and figure out how to make that work. So I think those were the two big oops.
I ask each one of us what is the favorite aspect of this project. John, why don't you go first?
Yeah, what struck me, the second day of filming, you'll see the day that has the snow falling, and it was the first time, you know, when you're in a project and you're working through the details and you're so focused on the details that you don't see what's there in front of you. And I was able to step back and I realized that what Terry had said all along about the variations in the textures, by the use of different materials, a different coloration, different textures, it was a spectacular, the end result was spectacular. And I realized that it was a fitting tribute to those who had served and those that gave all.
My favorite part was seeing the project go from absolutely nothing to the final memorial that we all look at today. Terry?
Well, mine was making sure that all of the detail that we were trying to accomplish, all the layers of meaning, were still in by the time we got done. Things like the ropes. The ropes on the columns refer back to the ties that bind us and harken back to the service emblems as an honorable way to describe the names that were there. The rosettes refer to a person in the prime of their life, of course, of whom all the names that are listed on the memorial would have been. The wreaths, we were able to add the wreaths back in, and that refers to acknowledged service in the military, and it also refers to a promise to remember people. In the Faces of Sacrifice, we had 3 known entities. We have Miles Shepard from the 1862 and the Civil War, who was 19 at the time and is buried in Simsbury Cemetery. We had Len Lanza, one of the members of the committee, whose face is in there with his uniform on, representing the Navy. And we have, thanks to the permission from the family, the face of Felix Del Greco, who was an important part of the memorial.
We invite all to visit the memorial both in the daytime and at night, as the perspective is totally different. So please visit and feel free to ask questions of any of the committee members.
I now ask Bruce Elliott, John Fox, and Raymond Jennings, and First Selectman Lisa Hebner to come forward. This was intended to happen on a larger platform here. Ray Jennings will read a proclamation of transfer from Simsbury Veterans Memorial Incorporated as we entrust the memorial to the town of Simsbury.
A proclamation. Whereas the Tom Alonis Hall Post 84, American Legion, and the Metacomet Post 1926, Veterans of Foreign Wars, both of Simsbury, came to realize that the memorials recognizing those veterans who were residents of Simsbury when they lost their lives while on active duty in service to the country are located in several places in our town, some of which are inaccessible to the public. And whereas there is inadequate room on the existing memorials to honor veterans who served, and whereas there is a need to provide an adequate central venue to pay tribute to the future generations of men and women who serve our country, and whereas members of the 2 organizations began a search for a site to commemorate their valor and service to our country in one location, and whereas after researching 12 Simsbury sites, engaging an architect, a law firm, an accounting firm, and receiving approval from all required town boards and commissions over a period of 5 years, and whereas we are all attending the dedication of the fruits of that labor on this date, now, therefore, as previously agreed, the Simsbury Post of the American Legion and the Veterans of Foreign Wars do entrust this Simsbury Veterans Memorial to the ownership of the town of Simsbury and to future generations of residents this 13th day of November 2016. Signed, Bruce H. Elliott, Commander, Tom Alonis Hall, Post 84, American Legion, and John Romano, Commander, Metacomet Post 1926, Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, guys. Thank you, all of you, for all your work and your committee. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Simsbury, we thank you for this gift to the town and humbly and gratefully accept. I told these guys I'm going to start to cry, and I might, so you'll just have to give me a little pause if I need to. It's an honor to be here with all of you today. I'd like to recognize members of the Board of Selectmen who are joining me: Sean Askham, Cheryl Cook, Chris Kelly, Elaine Lang, and Mike Payne. Commissioner Connolly and General Shea, welcome to Simsbury. We're very pleased you could join us. Representative Hampton is with us. Sherry Vogt, an Army veteran from Elizabeth Estes' office, who serves as a veterans liaison for our district, the 5th District. She's over there and can assist with any needs you might have if you're a veteran who has questions about federal assistance. Mickey LaCourse Beck, Simsbury's Veteran Services Coordinator. When Len first came to me and told me that he and local veterans wanted to build a memorial to Simsbury veterans who served and made the ultimate sacrifice, I thought this was an important and lovely project. When he told me they planned to raise $200,000, I thought this would be a daunting task. I am happy to report, however, that it was not daunting in the end, because so many in the community, really all of you here today, we just got the final numbers, there are 800 of you, over 800 of you here today, saw the value of their dream, of this dream, and worked to support our veterans to its completion. So my sincere thanks to everyone who is here today. I want to recognize especially Len Lanza, Bruce Elliott, John Fox, and Ray Jennings, members of the VFW and the American Legion, and all the veterans, all of you here today, who supported this initiative. Thanks also to Terry Hahn, who designed the monument. It is truly beautiful. If you have not yet had a chance to see it at night, it is worth a drive by, because when it is lit up, it is the most spectacular thing in Simsbury. This project was led by our veterans, and a grateful community stepped up to support them. The memorial was funded through generous citizen donations from veterans, their families, members of the community, and the DAR, who made the very first donation to the Memorial Fund 4 years ago, even before they had a bank account. This is true. A state steep grant from the governor's office with the support of our state delegation, Senator Witkos and Representative Hampton, and funding from the town with the support of the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the citizens of Simsbury, who voted for the budget that supported this project. I want to recognize and thank town staff who worked with our veterans on writing grants and building the monument. I think you'll see from the list, and I hope I got everyone, that this was a huge endeavor, and we were so pleased to be of assistance. Town engineer Jeff Shea, who coordinated us all. Director of Public Works, Tom Roy. Director of the Library, Lisa Kareem. Director of Administrative Services, Tom Cook. Supervisor of Facilities, Mark Rustick, and all the staff from each of these departments. Please also join me in thanking the Simsbury Police Department, Fire, and Ambulance, Public Works, who are here today and help support this beautiful, beautiful ceremony. I also want to ask you to look around at the community members who are also here in support of this. They've done a great job. I'm going to ask anyone who had anything to do with this memorial to raise your hand. If you donated, if you shook their hand, gave them a hug when they were frustrated, if you're here today, so guys, that means all of us. Raise your hands if you supported this memorial. It is so inspiring for me to look around and see so many friends and neighbors gathered for this purpose of remembering and honoring. In his proclamation on Veterans Day, President Wilson encouraged all Americans to recognize the valor and sacrifice of our veterans. Today, we join together to do just that. It is particularly meaningful in Simsbury as we dedicate this new memorial, which will be an everlasting tribute to lives well lived, for our nation, for us, and well worth remembering. This memorial serves as an important record for future generations and reminds us that the liberties we enjoy today come at their sacrifice. Today, we also come together as a community. And what a great community we have. And commit to service, to supporting and honoring our veterans, and to living the American values our veterans fought so hard for, so that their service and sacrifice will not have been in vain. We are a better and more just nation because of our veterans. We honor those who sacrificed, are still missing, and you are veterans here today. Our sincere thanks on this day and on all days. I close, as I often do, with a prayer from a veteran of the Civil War and a Supreme Court Justice, Oliver Wendell Holmes. Lord, bid war's trumpets cease. Fold the whole earth in peace. Thank you, everyone.
Commander of the Guard, retire the colors.
First company, right, face.
Simsbury patriots have answered our country's call to arms since the Revolutionary War. Every day, we enjoy the liberty their service secured for us. We owe all those men and women a debt of gratitude beyond measure, but our greatest thanks are deserved by those whose lives were lost in war service. The names of that special group are engraved on these columns, so our community will never forget what they did and the families that grieve for them. The memorial paving bricks on the plaza honor all who have served, regardless of when they served or where they entered the U.S. military. American Legion, Tomalonis Hall, Post 84, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Metacomet Post, 1926. By producing this documentary, it is hoped that the reasoning for the construction of this beautiful addition to Simsbury's history will be a record for future generations of Simsbury veterans and residents. The Simsbury Fire Department, a major donor, generously gave the flagpole and the flag to the memorial. The flag was presented by firefighter and Marine veteran Mike Brown to Petty Officer Robert Roberts, and together they raised the flag for the first time. Frank Shea played taps at the dedication of the memorial on November 13, 2016. He passed away in July of 2017. He was an Army veteran, having served in a field artillery unit in Germany during the Cold War. He earned his master's degree in music from the University of Connecticut. His musical talents were known to many, as his career in musical education saw him teaching, mentoring, and coaching many students. He played in and organized many musical groups during his entire life. He played his trumpet at many veteran affairs. His playing of taps at the dedication of this memorial was his last time playing at a veteran event.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.